Our emotions were never the problem. Reclaiming grief, rage, and expression across BIPOC communities. They called us angry, dramatic, stoic, too much, not enough. They labeled our emotions as threats, then had the audacity to prescribe silence as healing. But what if our rage was righteous? What if our grief was brilliance? What if our feelings were never the problem? And especially as a Black bodied woman, long misrepresented as angry from a stereotypical perspective. My rage is not a risk, it is a response. Welcome to Beyond the Spot. I am your host, Tracy Gantlin-Monroy, licensed professional counselor, Brainspotting Trainer, somatic practitioner. And in this episode, we reclaim what was pathologized, our emotional truth. This episode will explore how emotions like anger, grief, and fear have been pathologized or weaponized against BIPOC individuals. And when I talk about BIPOC, I am coming from a place of Black, Indigenous, and persons of color. And personally, I am most comfortable with the acronym POC, which is persons of color. Nonetheless, in this episode, we're going to look at the emotional policing of Black women. Per example, angry Black woman. Who hasn't heard that? How about Latinx folks being known as spicy, dramatic? And even when it comes to people that identify as indigenous persons or indigenous peoples, this idea of stoic vanishing and AAPI, which are American, I'm sorry, Asian American Pacific Islander folks, and this idea of model minority. We're going to explore how healing practices like brain spotting and somatic based informed modalities help us reclaim our right to feel without surveillance. The nervous system's brilliance in holding these emotions. And in this episode, we are exploring how we move from internalized suppression to radical reclamation. Beyond the Spot, Decolonizing Healing One Brain at a Time, is a podcast that weaves, my first love, of course, brain spotting, and somatic informed modalities with embodied healing, cultural consciousness, and real talk about trauma, resilience, and recovery. Hosted by Tracy Gantlin-Monroy, a licensed professional counselor, spiritual healer, and the first Black female brain spotting trainer in the world. Each episode dares to dismantle mental health myths, uplift lived experiences, and restore collective wisdom. One conversation at a time. Beyond the Spot podcast is for educational purposes and is not therapy. Please reach out to licensed medical and mental health professionals. Thank you. The policing of BIPOC emotions. Who is not tired of that notion? As a BIPOC identifying person, I absolutely am. This whole deal, Black women are called angry, Latinx folks, dramatic, Asian folks, too silent or too loud, depending on the gaze. Indigenous people, stoic and vanishing. Middle Eastern and South Asian people, how about volatile and unreadable, unreadable? These aren't traits, they're tropes rooted in white supremacy, designed to control perception and perpetuated in clinical spaces. This is why I am courageous enough, loving enough, open enough, and responsible enough to have these conversations. I'm not just talking about the policing of BIPOC emotions. There are actually fields of study whereby this type of information has empirical data to reinforce what I'm talking about when it comes to difference. It's not uncommon for misrepresentations, stereotypical accusations, uh, not even talking about microaggressions, but how about macro assaults? All the things. Being behind the veil as a licensed clinician, I get to have a different experience as a result of my access. And I've made it clear when I see something, I'm saying something. And it's not an indictment, it's actually humanity. Yeah. And so I just want to invite you to have reflection. What emotion did your body learn it wasn't allowed to feel? And who taught you that? And let's go here. Our nervous systems are brilliant. Fact. When we understand trauma through a brain spotting and somatic informed lens, we know this: the body holds what the mind couldn't process. Our nervous systems learned to suppress emotion not because we're dysfunctional, but because we're adaptive. When there is no actual threat, adapt. The brain and the body is not designed to maintain survival mode 24/7. Prime examples: grief becomes dissociation, rage manifests as muscle tension, sadness becomes internalized blame. Brain spotting, along with other somatic responsive modalities, it helps us locate and liberate these held emotions, not just intellectually, but somatically. When I am speaking from a somatic perspective, I'm coming from the body and physical sensations, movement, and bodily awareness. Somatic actually emphasizes the role of the physical sensations and bodily awareness, having to do with that felt sense. Somatically inclined practice is not new. Actually, it's quite ancient. I'll even go here, it's ancestral. Traditional talk therapy solely as a standalone is long outdated. Yeah. Point of reflection and just an invitation. What's one emotion your nervous system is still holding on behalf of your lineage? Just curious. As I become curious, I'm going to share that curiosity with you because I know those things that we can't do alone, we can absolutely do in and with community. I want to talk about white fragility and emotional policing. And I want to be clear from my perspective when I speak about white fragility and emotional policing. I'm coming from this idea. I want to talk about how whiteness has trained many to see Black, Indigenous, and persons of color's emotional expressions, especially rage, grief, or fear, as dangerous, unprofessional, or exaggerated. And that discomfort is not about our truth as BIPOC persons. It's more about white fragilities, unresolved fragility. Let's be clear. When I talk about white fragility, I ain't talking about dominant cultured white people. I'm talking about whiteness. And here's an operating ideological construct when I talk about whiteness, when I talk about white fragility, is the emotional armor of supremacy. And white fragility demands our silence so whiteness can stay comfortable. It turns honest expression into a threat and demands our silence as the price of peace. It labels our grief as unprofessional, our truth as too loud. It's almost like saying too black, too strong. Yeah, I couldn't resist that. Nonetheless, white-bodied clinicians who haven't done their work often misdiagnose cultural expression as dysregulation or worse. But what if the real dysregulation is their own fragility? Just an invitation here. Where has someone else's discomfort dictated your expression? And I cannot speak about white fragility and the emotional policing that has impacted BIPOC community for eons without giving a shout out to co-conspiratorship, co-conspirators, allies to communities of marginalization. Because co-conspiratorship has a cost, y'all. For real. There is an emotional and social cost of dismantling whiteness from within. And the journey of reclaiming authenticity through justice, it absolutely comes as a cost. So just kind of do the affirmative yes with me as you take your head up and down in the yes. Yeah, universal expression because it does. There is a cost for choosing justice, my friends. I'll give you some prime examples. Co-conspiratorship has a cost. It could be alienation from family systems and white peer groups. Yeah, just be mindful. It's not uncommon for a dominant cultured white identifying persons to pay a cost for standing in justice, doing the right thing against the empire or an empirical system that we know that white supremacy is institutional, it's systemic, it's in our systems, it's in our institutions, all the things. This is not new. Just look around you. It's more apparent even for the ones in the back of the room nowadays than in a long time, even to the place of co-conspiratorship costing and creating the fear of saying the wrong thing and losing status. How about internal identity crises as they confront the lie of neutrality. Let's go here. Grief over how deeply whiteness severed them from their own humanity. I'm going to say this, and I've had relationships day one with people different than me. Started actually early on. Many of you know my story. If you go back to some of the first episodes, you'll kind of, especially the first episode, I think I'm a bit transparent in sharing who I am at the root. Uh, but I've kind of been around the block. I also professionally do consultation with dominant cultured white people that want to do their anti-racist work, that want to become more embodied around their awareness of what it is and the impact of supremacy and oppression and how they can better posture themselves to be a part of justice by standing against wrongdoing. And one of the things I've come to learn and notice when it comes to a co-conspirator and their commitment to justice and supporting what's right, it's not uncommon for them to become alienated. To speak out against the empire, against white supremacy as a white person can actually be a bit dangerous. And even think about what that looks like emotionally, internally from a felt sense. Imagine being taught something at the root from day one, and then you come into yourself as you matriculate through the stages of development, and you start to have this abstract reasoning and notice that there's some stuff just wrong. The stuff you were told and sold ain't right. It's a lie. And it's harming others. That's a lot for someone to come into the acknowledgement and awareness that what they have been taught from day one is just not true. Okay. So you telling me how and why would someone of dominant cultured identity um would have an eternal internal identity crisis? Here's a better question. How could you not? Coming into truth and awareness, recognizing that perhaps your life has been less than honest. Yeah. And that would cause grief over how deeply whiteness severed them from their own humanity because, like it or not, like I say it all the time, I'm unashamed to say it and to declare it. The deal with me is, as a professional, this is not my job. This is my call. And my source, real talk, is Jesus, God and the Holy Spirit, and that's all under grace. Listen, my goal is to walk in abundant love. I'm just calling it what it is. Last I checked, even when it came to the Underground Railroad for my people, for my tribe, I'm a Charlestonian, I'm a Geechee. I'm very clear about my history. Yeah, there were people on the Underground Railroad that did not look like me, who were dominant cultured, identifying abolitionist white people who did not agree with enslavement of my people. So yeah, yeah. And let me be clear. When I talk about co-conspiratorship, it is a necessity. Yes, yes. Because until we all stand together on the same page, it can't work for none of us. Not completely anyway. I absolutely honor, not coddle, that there are white body therapists, clinicians, and allies doing real work. But that work has a cost. And respectfully to the white bodied folks doing the work, this episode is also for you because Telling the truth comes at a cost. And let me go right here. For those that may not be familiar with me or what my whole, mission in life is about, my whole goal is to leave the world better than I found it. Uh-huh. And what I ask the creator for is perpetual humility. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what I know as a truth teller is that telling the truth comes at a cost. Uh-huh. How about it may cost you your membership of belonging in white-centered spaces, being labeled too radical in their spaces. Could even cost you relationship with family or peers. How about your own sense of comfort and neutrality? Yeah, and it can also have the cost of sitting in discomfort without centering themselves or yourself. But I'll tell you this, one thing for certain and two things for sure. What it gives you is greater than the cost because what it gives is the authenticity, integrity, and a nervous system no longer dependent on denial. Co-conspiratorship is not performance, it's presence. It means listening without defense, speaking truth even when you're the only one in the room. It's learning that your healing won't feel good if it's built on someone else's silence. The cost of silence is soul deep, but the reward of truth is authenticity, and that is worth everything. And there's actually a path back to authenticity for white co-conspirators. Speaking up becomes a form of spiritual practice. Unlearning supremacy requires embodied discomfort. Yeah, because just to grow for all of us creates discomfort, change. Yeah. Becoming trustworthy doesn't start with being good, it starts with being real. Co conspirators aren't just helping persons of color, they are reclaiming the parts of themselves that whiteness exiled. Yeah, True whiteness work isn't charity. So let's not think by any dominant cultured person doing their work that they're doing a favor to BIPOC community. Because, yeah, no, that's not what time it is. It's reclamation for your own sense of self. It's reclaiming your soul from the grip of domination. It's learning how to love without owning, how to witness without centering, how to show up and stay. Yeah. Just want to give an invitation here. What part of you are you reclaiming by choosing discomfort over silence? Because the fact of the matter is, we're all in this space reclaiming something. And when it comes to BIPOC community, we are absolutely reclaiming our right to feel because for so long, ancestrally, generationally, and even intergenerationally for some, we haven't owned ourselves. I had a young man who came by the office today to do carpet cleaning. And it was so interesting to me. He's a young, Black, 39-year-old male. And I'm auntie in my community these days, and I'm actually loving it because it kind of gives you positionality that's undeniable, but it comes with a huge responsibility. Let me say that. 39 years old, as he began to speak, there was something exquisite about his Southern dialect. It was colloquially, regionally distinct. Yeah, he was Southern. I knew he came from the country, as we call it. And listen, his voice was melodious to my ears. And then he went on to say, basically, that he was raised on the Gillis plantation. Well, he didn't say plantation. Let me take that back. Let me take that back. He mentioned the name. And I said, hold up. You were raised on the Gillis plantation? He looked at me like, what does she know about that? Boy, I'm a scholar. Stop. If I don't know nothing else, I know whence I came. I just really got excited there because it was such a lovely afternoon spending time with him in my office. Him being an entrepreneur, me being an entrepreneur, us getting to know, us developing relationship. It was beautiful. I can't say anything else about that. But just this idea, he shared his rich history with me. Because, my people come more on the Denmark Vesey side. For any of you who know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm a Geechee gal. He out there from by Savannah. I'm down the way in the low country in Charleston. Y'all know the uprising was televised on my side of oppression down there in Charleston. Nonetheless, and for those of you who know me, you know I'm clowning because I get excited. I think we all should take a journey with our history. And for me, it's important to understand this idea of neuro experiential. As being a mom with a multicultural son, it was important for me to introduce Manuel to his culture, to his history on both sides. Whether it was in my sense of Blackness, being a Geechee gal from Charleston, South Carolina, or his Makisimo, um, being of Guatemalan descent on his dad's side, I have been able to witness the beautiful interplay of who he is and what that looks like. And so, with that being said, I'm very clear about co-conspirators. And it was such a beautiful experience to spend time with the young man today, and we were able to exchange, whereby leading into this idea of reclaiming our right to feel. Look, that ain't that many generations removed, if I am to be transparently leaning in honest here. This young man was 39 years old. And even as he gave the landscape of where his mama lives, his aunt, his uncle, and even stories he's just now receiving up to now. Yeah. And so reclaiming our right to feel is necessary. And this isn't about permission, it's about power. BIPOC emotions are not extra, they're evidence. Evidence that we're alive, connected, and aware of our truth. Be clear. Our grief is generational and it's genius. Please stop asking us to heal quietly. That ain't happening. If your healing requires my silence, it's not healing, it's still control. White comfort cannot be at the cost of Black, brown, and indigenous liberation. We are living in a different day and we get to contribute to what the ancestors have forged ahead and created for us. Brain spotting, somatic based trauma responsive modalities, They give us a way to reclaim that power. One spot, one breath, one emotion at a time. Invitation. I'm just curious here. What would your body say if it didn't have to perform? That's a real inquiry. And that's going to take some sitting with, to notice, to lean into, to feel, to explore. And as I do at the closing of all my podcast broadcast, I want to give an invitation to everyone to be curious. What emotion have you pathologized in yourself that was actually protective? What emotional stereotype have you internalized? How are you reclaiming your nervous system's right to feel? And as a clinician, when have you misread cultural expression as dysregulation? Your emotions were never too much, I promise. They were too honest for a world built on denial. Whether you feel rage, grief, exhaustion, or clarity, your body knows how to hold it. And I'm going to be real. I am stoked by being a body brain clinician because I have personally experienced, I have witnessed so much with clients individually, in groups, even in what I experience in the trainings I present at, workshops, things of that nature. Brain spotting, somatic informed responsive modalities. It gives us a way to listen deeper. The body speaks and we listen. This is Beyond the Spot. I am Tracy Gantlin-Monroy, LPC, Brainspotting Trainer, somatic practitioner. And I see you. I hear your truth. And I absolutely honor your right to feel. Let's reclaim it together. Thank you for spending your time with me. Please like, subscribe, and share. And I will catch you on the next go round. If today's episode resonated with your nervous system or your spirit, share it with someone who's still unlearning and reach out to me. My website is gracecommunitycounseling.com. You can reach me on Instagram at Monroy LPC. That is MONROY LPC. Also, I have offerings from retreats to brain spotting trainings to workshops, you name it. And I am also a speaker. So if you ever need a speaker with my skill set, look me up, give me a call. Let's see what can happen. And absolutely for you clinicians and adjacent body healers, feel free to reach out and attend a brain spotting training. We have trainings all the time. Thank you.